Good morning, good morning, good morning. Let me do some technical savviness here. Hold on, give me a hot sec. Thank y'all for showing up. Thank you for coming. We are in the process of setting this all up. Okay, it is set up. Welcome back to World of Akiba Land Roots and Culture African History class. World of Akiba Land's Roots and Culture African History class. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. I am Brother Ajay. I am also I am not the expert. I am the Malekio. I'm the seeker and the teacher. And we know that I am is the most powerful words in the dictionary. So yes, I am a seeker and I am the teacher. So as I learn, I share, I welcome you to the experience of the World of Kivaland Roots and Culture African History class. We are in the process of our social media Pan African movement, which is the rise of the African. It is the increased wisdom and gathering of people of African descent. This is our Garvey days. Yes, we are living out our divine destiny by increasing our education on who we are, whose we are, and then hopefully we'll get inspired to understand what we are literally called to do. What we are literally called to do. The purpose of this class. So, again, wait. So, if you're watching us on YouTube, please, well, let's do it again. Do it again. Hit subscribe and the notification bell so that you could hear every time that we are coming out or we're streaming live. We try to give must see live stream something that edifies your mind and your spirit. It nourishes your body for you to do whatever God has called you to do on this planet, to get you closer to the understanding of you. And if you are watching on Facebook, please, we say like, comment, and share. This is your opportunity for community outreach. If you really want to outreach, reach out to your community and help them out. Like, comment, and share, and let everybody enjoy this conversation. We are developing our scenario, our setup, so that we can have the classes. So this will be y'all, people who sit when we start working out, getting everybody here that way. How to do it that way, right there. That's where you'll sit. So we have quite a few programs, which is Sunday, Akiba Land Inspirational Sunday. We have Tuesday night, and that's at 12 noon. Tuesday evenings at 7, we have the African Speaks. Thursday, we have Afro Stream. After we have Afro Stream, we have, which is the African news. And we've been dealing with a lot of the news and how it happens, how to look at it via a Pan African perspective. Yes, a Pan African perspective. We need to give you, if you haven't seen it, please go take a look at it last week because we're opening eyes to what's happening in the Ukraine and whatever's happening to the Ukraine and Russia has happened to Africa tons and tons of times. And so how we see it is different than how everybody else is viewing it. And not only that, how we're being treated in it is deeply important. And today we have African history class. It's at 1 o'clock every Saturday. If I don't make it, that means I'm working on another project within the community. But we try to be, consecutive. And then of course we have 2 o'clock, the Understanding African Spirituality. World of Akiba Land, Understanding African Spirituality. That comes right after this. So we want to make sure you tune in. Now, all of the classes here for African history class, a lot of that information comes from our very own library. We're dealing with old Egypt today, and I wanted to leave the site up, I mean the page up, so I can show you this is over 6 terabytes of African history. And on this section right here is only Egypt. This is not talking about Nubia. This is not talking about Ghana, Zimbabwe. This is not talking about the Congo. This is all Egypt. Yes, 6 terabytes of African history. This not even a section on the Moors. That's just Egypt. So when I tell you that the master teacher of our community, which is Walamu Olatunji, he blessed me with that what he calls the People's Library. If you would like an encyclopedia, a technical or a digital version of an encyclopedia of data where your kids can do research on African history when called upon, hit me up, inbox me, like, comment, share me, comment. We will talk, and I will work my best to get you a copy of that hard drive. Okay. Also, and in that space, as we've been developing, African history, understanding that we are studying our culture, our attitudes, our behaviors, our multiple languages, our customs, our rituals, our faith and religions. African spirituality class, make sure you hit it. The foods we eat, art, drama, music. It's in a gambit of things. We'll take it from ancient African history until we gonna keep doing this until we get to the present day. That's a lot of classes and that's a lot of teaching, and we're going to keep doing it until we get there. And hopefully you enjoy it. We like to let you know that the education an African spirituality education is an education of two folds. It's an education that focuses on helping us to navigate through today's world. And when we're living, all of Africa has been kind of like colonialized and functions under a state of or the mark of colonialism. Not only that, so do we. We were enslaved by European society, and so now we function from the mark of slavery. That indoctrination of wrong education. So, an education from a Pan African perspective teaches a child or even an adult. Because I do this for children, but these things are for adults too. Hey, man, if adults say y'all ain't listening, y'all in trouble. Because what are you teaching? If you're not listening, what are you teaching? If this wasn't a part of your upbringing, who did you raise? Who did you leave out in the world that did not walk out into the world without a sense of self? Woo! If African history, because African history teaches a black child how to maneuver or negotiate through a world full of systemic racism. Definitely teaches them how to get through this because it helps them understand what's happening around them. And that's important when a kid is a black person is seeking their identity. Also, it drives the desire to build towards self-determination. We realize that with the way the world is going on, we need to have our own. And so what better it is to learn your cultures and then also study the civilizations that you built. And not only that you built, but influenced the entire world. What? So when we first started this, we dealt with the issue of the Nile River and how all of humanity started in Africa. And God blessed the African genotype with the Nile. The oldest civilizations are on the Nile. Period. And we said that how on the Nile, the most strongest civilization wasn't Egypt. Wasn't. And the reason why it's not, you didn't know that it wasn't Egypt is because it was deeper inside the center of the continent. Nubia. And we've done Nubia. Right? And so if we looked at Nubia and we realized, and then it stated in the study of Nubia, it said, see how Nubia is another, Kush is another word for Nubia. You see where Kush is and you see where Kemet is. Kemet is the original name of Egypt. Egypt is the Greek name. Nubia, right? Egypt is the Greek, but Kemet was what we called it. Kemet is what we called it, right? And so we also stated that Egypt is the immigrants of Nubia. What? Yes, they were the immigrants of Cush. Yes. Now, what the Greek world did was they said because they were planning to take over. Y'all need to be because we're gonna discuss this in African spirituality class. Wow, they wanted to dissect Africa because they wanted to downgrade their spiritual effectiveness and claim it for themselves. So they said we can't show the greatest civilization of Kush because then they'll know what came out of Africa. But we're gonna separate Egypt and Africa like it was two different entities, which it wasn't. However, since they want to show off and love their love for Egypt, because if you look, I got a movie right here, and I didn't pull, I should pull the movie over, but there's a recent movie in the 2000s, late, this is like a couple of years ago, where all of them are still white. All of them is still white. How do you sit down and talk about ancient Egypt and everybody white? And we know it to this day that they not, but Hollywood don't care. So we have to develop that love affair, that same love affair. So we're diving into ancient Egypt. We've already talked about the religious aspects of ancient, and we briefly discussed. Briefly discussed. When we dealt with Cush, we dealt with also the mythology of the faith, right? The mythology of their faith and how it grew into something that influenced the entire world, right? African spirituality has real spiritual systems, practices, ceremonies, rites, but when you have to explain the manifestation or the creation of man, everybody has a myth. Everybody has a myth. Christianity is full of myths for the creation of man. Because who was there? Not me. In African spirituality class, they even talked about we talked about many myths of African people, and some of them coincided with the myth of Christianity. Not the exact same story, but story. And then in Egyptian story, they said there's an area in Egyptian story where they said they copied the story of Egyptian mythology into Christianity. Mary wasn't the only, virgin birth, right? Or immaculate birth, we'll say that. She wasn't the only immaculate birth. Something that happened that could never happen if God was not involved. She was not the only immaculate birth. So we're going to go deeper into this. However, we want to slow walk ourselves into uh, this experience. And as we slow walk ourselves into this experience, we want to also, these are some of the books that are being pulled from. Connections Remembered actually comes out of individuals who are part of our community. Um, and then you see Amos Wilson's, he has a couple of books out, Civilization of Africa, um, Blueprint for Black Power, The Self Hate, Self Defeated, the book, The World and Africa. There's a lot of information coming out of this particular research that you'll hear. Uh, we also have the understanding. Wait, we don't want to get to that. We want to switch that. I don't want to switch yet. Boom, we're gonna jump right here. I was about to jump. We don't want to jump. Now, Amos Williams, which is one of the individuals who is a part of this research that I was looking at and studying and putting some of this information together. But we're gonna watch it. We're gonna finish watching the video that we started last week, right? However, he says uh, he teaches that, and let me show you the books because I had an issue coming up where I didn't know where to start. I did not know my books were just sitting right here. I didn't know where to start. Yeah, there they go. And so I will let you know, Amos Williams has older books. However, you want to get into some recent books, who dropped the ball on our children. It tells you about education, what the education should do, and a easy way to start studying African history with your family or group, church group, sorority, fraternity, discussion group, right here. One is the book, other one is the workbook, and it has great discussions where you can ask questions, discussions, write your answers, dialogue, perfect. And then here's a good beginner route to be building your library from. And so in our community, books are golden. They're golden. I had, as individuals transition to the other side, the spiritual realm, sometimes family members will allow you to come and pick up some books, right? And so I didn't have my old copy moving so many times, and putting stuff in storage and having storage. I had storage robbed before. I didn't have all the books, but still had this one, right? And so this is African spirituality class. So this we'll talk about that in African spirituality class, right? Now, Amos Wilson teaches that to manipulate history is to manipulate consciousness. Why? Because if you're reading something from somebody else's history, your level of consciousness is only as deep goes when we as the oppressor allows you to, right? In African understanding, when you talk about leveling up, leveling up is not the height of something; it's the depth. When you level up, you actually go down deeper into a state of consciousness. Yes, ain't that something? Because there's always something underneath something that's underneath something that's underneath something to give you a clear understanding. To manipulate consciousness is to manipulate possibilities. Man, if I can change what you see, how you see yourself through God and through history, I can change what you believe about yourself and what you're able to accomplish. To manipulate possibilities is to manipulate power. Ain't that something? You can make powerful people completely powerless. So we wanna begin to look at our history and what we've built, and this is a series of looking at Egypt and our history from a means of wow. Not only is and it's called architectonics, where you look at the architecture of what a people created and realize that everything around them, woo, great, comes from their intelligence. Why? Because again, these are the first civilizations. They didn't learn this from anybody else. They didn't get this from anybody else. Africans, we, descendants of Africans, this is why we calling each other kings and queens, because we were able to manifest civilization from the thought of everyday thinking. That's the power of that's the power of you. That's possibilities. And so to know that history, to glamorize your own yesterday, is to help you see where you're going today. And I can't shake it. So I sat down and said, this, when you see it, if that doesn't move you to celebrate you, every hieroglyphics, the writing, the carvings was the history of their spirituality. It was the history of their journey, their people. It was their relationship in God. You see the relationship with animals. Everything around them reflected divine living. That's who you are. And that's how we were able to create great empires. And this is the basis. This is the basis empire for every institution, every civilization, European civilization, bit off of African civilization. Period. You can't find anything older than African wisdom. You just can't. And so that's the clear part of understanding who we are as a people. And I want to get to this video because I want to be able to watch more of it today, because it was, last time we watched it, couldn't see much. But we want to get to this and understand that this is your heritage. This is who you are. This is where you come from. The realm of impossibilities. I am possible, not impossible. I'm possible. At what? everything. I have the possibility to influence the globe to develop real life, increase humanity. And so we say that because in that space, we know that ancient Egypt, Kush, African spirituality, African way of life was the first way of life. Rome and Greece and anything Europe studied from us. We had even universities. And we'll get to that more as I said I'm gonna slow roll this, and I'm not gonna speed my way through understanding Egypt because they love Egypt so much. We're gonna love it too. We took some weeks. We took a while to go through Kush. Oh, we're gonna take even longer to get through Egypt. It's not just gonna be quick because I want it to be a part of your identity, a part of who you are, a part of your regalness in which you walk. Because it took African history to influence Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, Shakespeare, all of them. And it developed, you see the other third one, modern civilization. All mathematics and science came out of Egypt. Nobody made any new math. Nobody made anything new math that did not come off the foundation of African wisdom. Everything that we use today in terms of technology comes out of African wisdom. I need you to embrace the love of you. That's what we hear today. So we're about to take a look and restart the video that we were watching last week to finish. And these videos that this particular brother that I see is named Rock Newman. Even though these are up to date, I would see things and I was like, yeah, I'm not watching that. Not understanding what I was missing. And now my father always told me, he said, if you get older and if you get wiser, because increasing your age doesn't mean you increase in wisdom. It doesn't. Yeah, I know a lot of people older than me that just are here. That's it. They're just here. There is no wisdom from us for them to depart, but how to be better slaves. No disrespect, y'all. But my father said, if you get older and if you get wiser, because there's no guarantee what God will have for you, you will be watching and listening and understanding the same things I'm in. And at that time, I was like, forget you. He was not joking. So in my concept, if I can give it to a generation younger, World of Akibalat, and y'all get it earlier, World of Akibalat, and this is the world of black people, the awareness of who you are, we can change things down the road. Y'all come to African spirituality class because I'm going to talk about that also. All right, let's go to this video.
No, no, no. What I'm dealing with is putting history in a timeline. If we go back to the Blasio mural that begins with the written record began in Africa. Humanity began in Africa. The oldest documented culture and civilization began in Africa. So I'm going to the beginning. It has nothing to do with superiority and inferiority. It has everything to do with constructing the narrative in its proper chronological sequence.
Woo! Constructing the narrative in its proper chronological sequence, because they want you to believe that you were slaves first. No. For thousands and thousands of years, you ran the world. The same way United States has the influence of everybody, Africa and area and countries in Africa, not Africa as the continent, but the countries in Africa influence the entire world. And if we can get you to see that you were the first at everything. Now we have the first black person doing this and the first black person doing that in this country. But we were the first nation to do so many things. Let's continue.
So that's why timelines are so important. So if we were to look at a timeline of Kemet or ancient Egypt, we see that civilization began around 3200 BC, and that there were 4 ages of great development, and that around 856 Greece became a nation state, and around 730 Rome became a nation state. So Greece and Rome are the foundation of European history and culture, but African culture and civilization preceded it by over 2,000 years. That has nothing to do with racism. That is a correct historical perspective.
That's it. A lot of times, even black people talk about, why you gotta be all black? Why you racist? What? Studying about myself? What? And then they talk about the superiority complex. Oh, you talking about black superior? No. I'm just trying to get to know who God called me to be. I'm just trying to get you to know who God calls you to be. And then when you find that out, what did God really call you to do? Woo! I'm feeling good today. I'm feeling good today. I'm feeling good today. Let's continue.
And so Greece conquered Egypt in 332. And Greeks ruled Egypt for approximately,
Greece conquered Egypt in 332
right, BC.
BC. At the time, the name was Kemet. They
Exactly.
conquered Kemet and named it Egypt.
Named it Egypt.
Right.
And that's very important because Egypt is a Greek word, pyramid is a Greek word, sphinx is a Greek word. So many of the terms that we use to describe African people, places, and things are European terms. And we all know when you call somebody out of their name, it's the ultimate disrespect.
Ain't that something? Now, we also learned previously understanding Cush. Cush was holding off the invasion of Roman Greece coming into Africa through Egypt because Egypt was the process of trade through the Mesopotamia. Above that, that's the Mesopotamia, that's the ocean, and so they would sail to Africa to buy and sell goods. They would get all the grains and cereals and everything else from Egypt, right? Cush was like, yo, and it was if it was a trail. That's why you said you got to understand the Nile. If you don't understand the Nile and what the Nile did and how it stretched across 8 different countries in Africa, you wouldn't understand it. How vast it was, over 8,000 miles. In 11 different countries, 8,000 miles. That's what it was. And so, if you don't understand how big these civilizations were, you won't understand the influence we had over the world. And so, only because one of the things that you will never, they won't, white folks won't say Egypt didn't exist. They'll just tell you it's not a part of Africa, and they don't won't connect it. Here, when we studying it, we're gonna connect it, and we got no choice but to see who we are in God. This is beautiful. Let's continue. This brother's getting down.
So part of the process of restoring our historical and cultural memory is to go back and reclaim the original names and then understand when they were changed and the effect, the psychological effect of changing the name of a person or on that person and a people. Greece ruled Egypt for about 300 years before they were conquered by the Romans in about 32 BC.
Okay, and let me, before you go forth there.
I don't know what he's about to ask, but it was one point where Greece came in, and then Cush had to come up and push them out of Egypt, and Cush took back over Egypt. So it was Egypt and Cush, and then after Cush took over Egypt, they looked at Egypt and said, "Can you please maintain the borders and keep Europeans out? Just keep them out, man." And then they gave the country back to the Egyptians. It was like, we don't want to rule you because we want to rule you. No, we want to rule you to maintain the Mayat, which is the balance of life. And man, I can't wait till we get into Egyptian religion. That'll be a while, but you'll see this. Let's continue.
So Greece conquered Egypt.
Yep.
Talk to us, talk to our audience here about the mechanisms, the efforts, and the success of the Greeks having conquered Kemet to redefine what was Kemet, Kemetic history.
Now, before we go, realize he went from saying Egypt to Kemet. After the brother, and I'm gonna switch that up, and I waited for this to get y'all there. When he said it's deeply disrespectful to call someone out of their names. And so we don't know saying the word Egypt is being disrespectful to Kemet or the ancestral connection we have to Africa. So the psychological damage that we will know, we don't even reclaim our names. Kemet. We are studying ancient Kemet, or what Europeans call Egypt, but ancient Kemet. Let's go.
Okay. Great question, because what the Greeks did was reinterpret everything African through a European lens. And As Homer said, one of the greatest writers in Greek history and culture, said that the Greeks are children when compared to the ancient Kemites. Homer said that all of the gods and goddesses of Greece came out of Africa, Ethiopia, which is their generic word for Africa. Ethiopia means sunburnt. And that all of the gods and goddesses of Greece had to come to Africa once a year to renew their powers, at least they become mortal.
Wow. One, did you hear what he said about the word Ethiopia? It's a Greek word, it's not a location. It's a Greek word that says burnt faces. And so at one point, the Ethiopian region wasn't a country in Africa. The Ethiopian region was from Africa all the way over to India. It was a big stretch of land, a big stretch of land. We'll talk about it in African spirituality class where it says Africa had all the human forms in it, which is the Mongoloids. The Mongoloid was the Mongolians was the Asian looking African. Yeah, let's continue.
All of the Greek famous mathematicians studied Hippocrates, right? Hippocrates, the physician, studied Kemetic medicine. But
I read, I read where Hippocrates says that he worships at the feet of Imhotep.
right, the Hippocratic Oath.
And he's the one, obviously, that the Hippocratic Oath is named after,
Right.
after Hippocrates. So Hippocrates, known as the father of medicine, he himself acknowledged
Imhotep,
Imhotep.
who is known to the Greeks as Asclepius, the god of medicine. So
And wait. Do you see this? I this the Hippocratic Oath. I never knew it was named after Hotep. I mean, whatever the white guy's name is. What they say? And then they stole it from Imhotep or the Hippocratic. What was it? I'll get it. We're gonna listen again. This is news to me, and what? I knew Imhotep was the father of medicine coming out of Africa. That I knew. How well they stole it? What? Y'all got to get this. You will start loving yourself when you start studying medicine. Those who are going to school to be doctors and getting their PhDs in medicine or whatever it is in terms of any type of healing, you're walking in the footsteps of your ancestors who brought medicine to this world, to civilization. What? Come on. If you can't get excited about studying history that the whole world is based off of you, I think everybody should call their mama, regardless how old you are. Even if you visiting your mama just to visit your mama for the weekend, you should go in there and say, "Guess what, mama? I'm studying the makeup of me, medicine. I am from ancient wisdom and greatness." And she's gonna look at you crazy. It's all right. Let's go.
all of the Greeks became great only after they encountered African people
See
and
it?
conquered Kemet and studied 2,500 years of African science, African philosophy, African mathematics.
2,500
Pythagoras,
years.
the Pythagorean theorem,
Theory. Come
introduced
on.
by Pythagoras,
A
was
squared plus
actually
B squared
used to
equals C
build
squared.
the pyramids 2,000 years before Pythagoras discovered it. So what we discover when we study history from a larger context is
Stolen
that the Greeks
Legacy is a book to
borrowed
get.
from Africa and didn't always acknowledge the source of their information. The Romans then conquered Greece, and the Romans took everything that the Greeks had and then Latinized that and proclaimed that as their own culture
Hey,
and
mama.
heritage. So what we have in Western culture is built on the foundation of Greece and Rome, which copied from Africa. So I'm all about going to the source, going back to the roots, and there's nothing racist about that. Any person in their right mind would want to go to the empirical evidence to build a foundation of knowledge, and that's what we've done. So
Woo! I'm just going to the essence of truth. What? They say God is truth, right? And he says, I'm going to the essence of truth. I'm studying what God has done when you're studying truth in terms of history in its truest form. What? That's as beautiful as you get because if you don't do this, you have no real truth. So if African culture is not a part of your life experience, you really don't know no truth. Ain't that something? That's why we have a lot of problems in our community. We are living a false life in all levels. When you sit down and say Pythagorean theory, all the mathematics of European society came out of Africa. What, out of Kemet and Kush and the Mali Empire? What? We didn't even get to Mali Empire yet. I'm gonna save that. Let's go.
The idea of Egypt on the Potomac is all about.
Let me stop you. Folks, get your kids. Get your kids
See,
and bring them into the room. Right now. Tell them Uncle Rock said, hurry up.
hurry
Hurry
up,
up, as you
Hurry
say.
up.
The idea
her
of
up.
Egypt on the Potomac, this came to me 40 years ago after I traveled to Egypt on my second trip in 1985. And I came back to D.C. and I noticed architecturally, ancient Egypt is all around D.C. I saw the monument and I saw.
Now, if y'all missed last week, he shows you how the Washington Pyramid. Let me see if I have the picture ready. If I have it up here, where's it at? Let me go down. Go down. Is it in here? Oh, it's not in here. He shows you how the Washington Pyramid was a representational, symbolic, or giving honor to ancient Egyptian contribution to the world. What? Bet you didn't know that. Watch last week's or week before last. Let's go.
other structures that reminded me of similar structures that I'd seen in Egypt. So I created this Egypt on the Potomac field trip and began to look at the narrative. So in order to understand why Egypt was rebuilt on the Potomac by America's founding fathers, and it was, and I'll prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt, let's begin to look at the fundamental essence of ancient Kemet. So first of all, Kemet or Egypt is in Africa, right?
We got
The
that.
oldest documented civilization known to man.
Even though the
got
cab
that.
driver in New York that I was with, when I saw his name and I thought it was Egyptian,
Right.
I said, my African brother. He said, no, 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 I'm from Egypt.
Okay, but let's look at this then. Let's look at why he said that. The Arabs came to Egypt in 648 A.D. So the Arabs who now rule Egypt, their ancestors had nothing to do with building the pyramids, temples, and monuments. So they may be Egyptian, but they're not Kemetic.
Now, understanding that once Egypt, well, Kemet was conquered, and because it was the center of all trade, once Rome came in, and the Kush was like, you know what, we tired of fighting the fight, and they gave up because it was years and years and centuries of war. In and out, in and out. Even though we had great living for long periods of time, there always, like in the Bible, it said there was a king who knew not Joseph. There's a pharaoh. Same thing. There came somebody in Greece who was like, you know what? Let's go over there and take over Kemet again. Let's try it one more time, and they succeeded. And after a while, Cush would stay. You know what? We're just gonna let it happen. We tired of protecting the border because Kush was further down, and they said we were just tired of protecting borders that are not ours, but they were trying to maintain a greater lifestyle. They said we're not fighting for we want to take over you. We're fighting to maintain the balance that we have with God, the Mayat, harmony in which we're living, where pure divine genius can be manifested. A people living with pure connection to each other, to the earth, to nature, develops pure divine genius. You want to know why it's hard to get our kids to come together and build their own? Because they don't have an African point of view or perspective of who they were in God and what they created. We changed that, we changed the world. 24 hours. Let's go.
Right, so let's put things in context. So Kemet is the oldest documented civilization known to man. The blast field mural reinforces this historical reality. And the cultural DNA of Kemet is rooted in the trinity of Asar, Aset, and Heru, the founding family of ancient Kemet. Asar is a mythological king who united the two lands, who introduced agriculture, government, and religion, and who was murdered by his brother. His body was cut into 14 pieces and scattered throughout the land. Aset, Asar's wife, went searching for the missing parts of her husband's body. She found 13 of the 14 parts of Asar's body and literally remembered her husband, and then created what Arabs call a mummy, the first mummy in history, over 3,000 years ago. And she proceeded to bury her husband. It took her 70 days to find the missing parts of Asar's body and to funeralize him. Thus, for the next 3,000 years after this story, the process of mummification was a 70-day process. So before Set was about to bury her husband, she grieved because she was about to bury the man that she loved. And then, according to the narrative, according to the scripts that I've seen in many buildings in Egypt, the spirit of Asar came and impregnated his virgin wife Set. And then 9 months later, the virgin Set gave birth to her son Heru. And
What? Does that story sound familiar? An immaculate conception created years, thousands of years before Jerusalem, Israel, manifested itself from the center of Congo, coming up out of Africa. All right, so that's down there by Zimbabwe, over there a little bit. The center of Africa coming up and having a story that was familiar to what? Something that existed 10,000 years before. Wow. When we talked about sacred mythology in African spirituality class, wow. Wow. He couldn't make it no more plain. This is why people say this is not a unique story. But everybody, this every religious sect has a mythological story to explain what can't be explained. Ain't that something? Let's continue.
So thousands of years before the little baby was found in the manger in
yes,
Jerusalem, there was an immaculate conception.
yes, that chronologically we can say that occurred at least 4,000 years before the birth of Jesus the Christ. We have an identical story recorded on the walls of temples in Egypt or Kemet right now, today. The evidence is still there. So as we look at this story, and then we'll connect it to the historical
Let's
narrative.
stop there for a second
Okay.
because the reality is we're
I'm gonna stop there for a second because I know a lot of people gotta digest this. 4,000 years before that story was written in scripture, sacred. It was written also on walls and temples and in scrolls. Wow. You gotta meditate on that. And we know that this is sacred mythology when it comes to Kemet. And so we don't denounce any religious faith. That's not what we do. Not when you come into understanding that everything that's spiritual comes from an African people, and all we're trying to do is understand who we are in God, and we take that information to find out what are we supposed to do when we understand who we are in God. So that doesn't denounce the Christian faith because there were so many other different faiths. And if you were part of African spirituality class, you know that some people say that some certain African sects rewrite the Garden of Eden story. Who was there? So if you're inspired to tell a story and make it sacred and your people lean on it, the issue is what do you produce from that sacredness of believing that connection? So when you look at Kush and look at Kemet, you look at the things that Africa was able to accomplish for the entire humanity from that sacred story. How you knock it down? You don't. So as black people in a oppressive society, if we're going to take the mythological parts of the Bible and as sacred myths, what do we produce from them? We definitely haven't produced our own Egypt. Or, sorry, we're going to spit that word out. We haven't produced our own Kemet. Because if this came from us, that means God is with us. And we have to produce something. Kemet was able to do it and influence the into Kush and Kemet and the great other civilizations of the African continent was able to do these things and influence all humanity. And we talk about the word kingdom building, and we can't even influence our neighborhood. We can only influence those people who get to the church and be in the building with us. God don't exist only in that building. God exists in the individuals. So if we're building kingdom building, then it should look like the intro to the video where you see the eagle flying around. That's kingdom building. What we see around us is what Egyptians built. Kemet built. When you no longer hear me say the word E word and only do Kemet, you're gonna know, you're gonna see transformation, me change from accepting my conditioning and breaking loose from my conditioning and walking in to a real state of truth. Let's continue.
Sitting here trying to engage in a calm, somewhat, at least from your end, cerebral discussion.
Sure.
It's hard to do that. You get
But
excited.
the foundation of the Holy Trinity
Yes.
Uh
and
oh.
the Immaculate Conception,
He touching stuff.
you say are on the walls, and were on the walls 4,000 years
Oh, that's what he's
before
talking about.
the birth of Jesus the Christ.
Exactly.
So we can't
I gotta
have
get his
this
book.
discussion and not explode some of what we understand as religion, the religion that is most commonly practiced in the United States
Exactly.
and many other places in the world as Christianity.
Exactly.
If in fact what you're saying is correct,
If what
that
he's think
is an
about it.
explosive claim, if you will, because Christianity teaches that the original, that the birth of Christ wasn't something that
Happened with anybody
derived
else.
from ancient Egypt in any Kemetic.
So what we're talking about, what you're describing, is an identity quake.
Okay. Identity quake. I'm gonna stop here before we go. We got a few minutes before we gotta get to African spirit, and I can't wait to start this again because that's a conversation. That's more than a conversation. This is not the birth of Jesus is not the only story, and the story came 4,000 years. Now again, what I want to say is, can God do it more than once? Absolutely, if that's what God chooses. So then that means that the way Christians condemn other people who don't follow Christianity, absolutely wrong. Because Kemet did not call it Christianity. Kemet doesn't have the foundation of that they have. Now, when we start looking at Kemet laws in terms of the Mayat, you'll see that in the 42, and I had it down, the 42 laws of Kemet, you will see the Ten Commandments. I saw that myself. I saw that myself. I had a book here long ago, and it was like paper I printed out. Wow! But it shows you the depth of spiritual awareness that happens in an African people. So just embracing Christianity as it coming out of an African people, it's not enough. You got to embrace the entire history of the people to get to the truth that will give you the power of who you are. Because God was in an African people, period. And Christianity is a part of it, period. But the Romans and Greeks used it against us, period. Now, how do we get back to our understanding where it's greater? We have to study our history. I got a few minutes left. Let's see what he's going to say next. Let's go.
So when you hear new information that shatters your perception of self, it rattles you from the inside out.
I think I feel the studio.
Frantz Fanon referred to it as cognitive dissonance. When you hear something that is such a radical departure from what you believe, you reject it because it makes you feel uncomfortable. I understand.
Now, wait, I want to say this. Taking in seminary classes, right? We're discussing, and we went in depth in terms of certain studies that we had. And we dissected the Bible the way in this class, the way no one else I can tell you it was done. And some of the young individuals that were there were coming were sent by their churches. And in the discussions we chose to have, because you're having individuals who's sitting in seminary class, come walking in there with a clear understanding of African history. And so we knew where the falsehoods of Christianity was. And so we would challenge things and say, wait a minute, well, let's think about this and let's connect it to history. And when the truth were coming out, you saw ministers saying, I can't take that back to my church. And we was looking like, why not? And he said, because they'd kick me out the church. I can't talk about the blackness of Jesus, the blackness of Mary, the blackness of Israel, the true culture of a people. I can't do that. I can't talk how maybe Christianity was derived, pieces of Christianity, the Christian faith was derived from other African spiritual systems. I can't do that. Why not? Because I wouldn't have a church. Yes, you would. You'd have something new that would actually heal and move black people to doing what? Because we can rewrite Christianity according to the way we see fit in terms of how we interpret the scripture according to what we know about history, right? Because Jesus, written by the Greeks, is not the same Jesus written by the Africans. I sit down and I tell people, if I was IJ raised in the suburbs, and then you put IJ who raised in the inner city, you put them the two together, they both name IJ. They just don't think and interact the same. Same thing. You take a African spiritual system, and we said in African spirituality class, if there's 4,200 different tribes in Africa, there's 4,200 different ways to look at spirituality. No one dictates one over the other. Yet they all live harmoniously in growth because they all kingdom build to give one God praise. They just name them different. Wow. Christianity really don't do that. Ain't that something? Well, at least European Christianity. Because African Christianity, we don't knock you because we know that there's no one understanding in God that makes sense if God is the beginning and the end. So we can't denounce you. We can only look at what you manifest from your faith and your belief. Kemet became an integral part of the growth of every modern civilization. Wow. If that's not God, I don't know what is. And so it's our job to learn more so that we can give more and truly kingdom build. Can't wait till we talk about what he about to say next week. One love. Let's go.